YouTube, hello once again. Welcome back to Best Lathe Plans. For anybody new to the channel, hello and welcome. This is Best Lathe Plans and I post videos on hobby machining at home. Today we have a cute little project for you which was first posted by Joe Pye. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. As you've already seen, it's a Tiny Cosmopolitan Glass made of brass. There's no design here, so it's all done by eye, as demonstrated by Joe Pye on his channel. The stock is brass round bar. It is 5/16 of an inch diameter, or for the metric among you, including myself, that is 7.9 millimeters. We've already got the work mounted in the 3-jaw chuck, and we've faced it off, and we've done a normalizing cut down the length of the bar. The first operation is the inside of the glass. I tried this with a center drill, which obviously didn't work. I then tried with a few different types of drill bits I had lying around the workshop, and neither of them gave an angle that looked right. I eventually found a small piece of round drill rod which had previously been ground down to about a 100-degree angle. I took this into the shed and ground it to about 90 degrees. It wasn't quite exact, but it suited the purpose of this glass. Back at the lathe, we chucked it in the tailstock drill holder and we drilled out the center of the glass. You can see here the finish isn't great. That's because I've not really ground any tools before, so I'm still learning that skill. Here you can see me checking the angle of the cutting tool with the angle that the drill rod cut. This was to make sure the inner and the outer walls of the glass were parallel. Next up was the outside taper of the glass, and this is where you need to be a bit more careful. As Joe Pye advised, you do not want to get the full outer edge of the glass to touch the cutter. If you do this, it can cause too much friction. This can cause the part to snap, which obviously is not advisable. You just need to work backwards very carefully until the line between the old and the new faces you're cutting just disappears. The stem was fairly straightforward but delicate work. The brass does work really nicely, so a deep cut was possible. I have my spindle running pretty slowly. It's around 500-600 RPM, which is slow for such a small diameter of work. Once we'd worked down towards the base, as Joe Pye did, I also decided to make the base slightly narrower than the diameter of the rim of the glass. I started parting off the work. This allowed the edges to be neatened up with a file. I decided the finish wasn't great, so I went over it with some wet and dry. I'm only doing light work with the wet and dry sandpaper here. I'm only using the rigidity of the paper and no other force because I do not want to bend the stem of the glass and cause it to snap. I should have done the inside of the glass before actually working the stem. That would have left it a lot more rigid and a lot easier to work, but never mind. And here you can see me using a file to take off some of the sharp corners on the base. Here you can see me polishing the part with some auto sole on a cotton rag. I'm holding the rag very lightly between my thumb and forefinger on each hand so that if it does get caught, it doesn't pull my hand into that big spinning chuck. I did have to be a bit careful when parting off because the part is so small and has such a small rim, so I used a cloth to protect my hand. As always, it's good practice to clean up the end of your bar stock before putting it back. And it's parted off. It's tiny. I'm actually really impressed with how that came out. And as you can see, the overall height of the glass is 8.8 millimeters, the base is 6.3 millimeters, and the top is 7.5 millimeters. And for those of you working in Imperial, I'm afraid you'll just have to take my word for it that it's actually pretty small. So because we're left with a small pip from parting off, I'm just sanding that off with a bit of wet and dry sandpaper, and the part is finished. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, do consider giving it a like and clicking subscribe. Stay safe, and I will see you in one of my other videos. Cheers!